Hollywood is built on a powerful promise: fame, wealth, and the belief that success will finally make life feel complete. For many celebrities, it works, but for others, the applause fades faster than expected, leaving behind pressure, isolation, and an uncomfortable sense that something is missing. At the height of their careers, some stars reached a quiet but life-changing crossroads. They had everything the world celebrates, yet found no peace in it. Instead of chasing more attention, they made a decision Hollywood rarely encourages: turning toward Jesus, even when that choice risked careers, contracts, and public approval. What happens when fame stops being enough? Why would someone with millions of fans choose a path that offers no trophies or red carpets? And which of these stories will challenge what you think you know about success? These are the celebrities who chose faith over fame. 15. Denzel Washington. For decades, Denzel Washington has been one of Hollywood's most respected actors, known for his discipline, intelligence, and carefully chosen roles. With multiple Academy Awards, box office success, and critical acclaim, his career represents the highest level of professional achievement. Yet behind that success, Washington has consistently spoken about something he considers far more important than fame: his faith in Jesus Christ. Unlike celebrities who discover religion after a public collapse, Washington's journey is rooted in upbringing and personal conviction. The son of a Pentecostal minister, he grew up immersed in church life. As his fame grew, however, he faced the same temptations and distractions that come with Hollywood success. In interviews and speeches, he has admitted that ambition, ego, and industry pressure can quietly pull a person away from their spiritual center if they are not vigilant. What makes Washington's story compelling is that his faith did not remove him from Hollywood; it reshaped how he navigated it. He has spoken openly about prayer, scripture, and accountability as tools that kept him grounded while others around him lost direction. In several high-profile speeches, he credited God rather than talent or luck for his career, a stance that stands out in an industry built on self-promotion. Washington has also emphasized responsibility, particularly toward younger actors. He has warned that success without spiritual grounding can be dangerous, urging others to put God first, even when it is unpopular. Rather than preaching through roles, he chose to live his beliefs publicly but calmly, refusing to separate faith from identity. In choosing Jesus over ego and image, Denzel Washington demonstrated that belief does not require withdrawal from success, but it does demand humility. His story challenges the idea that faith and Hollywood excellence must exist in conflict. 14. Mark Wahlberg. Mark Wahlberg's rise to fame followed a far more turbulent path. Before becoming a Hollywood star, he was known for legal trouble, violence, and instability. His early success in music and film brought money and recognition, but it also magnified unresolved anger and destructive habits. By his own admission, fame arrived before maturity. Wahlberg's turning point came as he began confronting the long-term consequences of his past. Faith became central to that transformation. Rather than presenting religion as a rebrand, he treated it as discipline, something practiced daily, privately, and consistently. Over time, prayer, church attendance, and personal reflection became non-negotiable parts of his routine, even while working on major film productions. What sets Wahlberg apart is how openly he accepts the cost of faith in Hollywood. He has acknowledged that public devotion can limit opportunities, attract criticism, or make others uncomfortable. Yet, he has repeatedly stated that career success means little without spiritual direction and family stability. In interviews, he has described faith as the structure that keeps him accountable, focused, and grounded. Wahlberg has also emphasized responsibility, particularly toward his children. He often frames his beliefs not as perfection, but as guidance, a way to live with intention after years of chaos. Rather than distancing himself from his past, he uses it as evidence of change, pointing to faith as the foundation that made growth possible. By choosing commitment over image and discipline over excess, Mark Wahlberg represents a different kind of Hollywood narrative, one where faith is not a marketing tool, but a personal anchor that reshaped how success is measured. 13. Chris Pratt. Chris Pratt's rise to fame is often described as a Hollywood fairy tale. He went from struggling actor, living out of a van and taking small television roles, to becoming one of the most bankable stars in blockbuster cinema. With global franchises and massive fan support, Pratt achieved the kind of success many actors spend a lifetime chasing. Yet, as his visibility grew, so did the pressure and his awareness that fame alone could not sustain him. Pratt has spoken openly about moments of personal crisis that reshaped his priorities, particularly surrounding health scares within his family. These experiences forced him to confront vulnerability at a time when his public image suggested invincibility. In those moments, faith moved from something distant to something deeply personal. Rather than treating belief as a private coping mechanism, Pratt gradually began acknowledging Jesus as central to how he understood purpose, gratitude, and responsibility. What makes Pratt's story complex is the environment in which he chose to speak. Hollywood is often uncomfortable with public expressions of Christianity, and Pratt has faced criticism and assumptions about his beliefs as a result. Instead of retreating or escalating conflict, he has consistently framed his faith as personal conviction rather than political statement. He emphasizes grace, humility, and personal accountability rather than judgment or ideology. Pratt has stated that faith helped him redefine success, not as fame or box office numbers, but as being present, disciplined, and grounded. He credits prayer with helping him navigate fame without losing perspective, particularly during periods of intense public scrutiny. By choosing to acknowledge Jesus openly while remaining active in mainstream Hollywood, Chris Pratt challenges the idea that belief must be hidden to succeed. His story reflects a quiet but firm decision. Fame can amplify a voice, but faith determines what that voice stands for. 12. Kathy Ireland. Kathy Ireland became one of the most recognizable faces in the world during the peak of her modeling career. As a dominant figure in fashion and media, she represented beauty, success, and commercial power. From magazine covers to television appearances, Ireland embodied an industry driven by image and constant validation. Yet behind the surface, she has described feeling unfulfilled by a life centered solely on appearance and status. Ireland's turning point did not come from scandal or collapse, but from gradual realization. As her career progressed, she began questioning whether fame truly aligned with meaning. Her Christian faith, which had long existed quietly in her life, became the foundation for redefining her identity beyond the modeling world. Instead of clinging to an image-based career, she made the deliberate decision to step away from the spotlight and focus on values that reflected service and purpose. That choice surprised many. Ireland transitioned into entrepreneurship, building a global business empire grounded in ethical practices and long-term impact. She has repeatedly credited her faith in Jesus with shaping how she approaches leadership, responsibility, and success. For her, belief was not about withdrawal from influence, but about redirecting it. Ireland has spoken about resisting Hollywood's pressure to maintain relevance at any cost. Faith gave her permission to say no to projects, expectations, and environments that conflicted with her values. She reframed success as stewardship, rather than self-promotion. By choosing conviction over visibility, Kathy Ireland offers a rare Hollywood story, one where stepping away from fame did not diminish influence, but transformed it. Her journey illustrates how faith can quietly reshape ambition without demanding attention or applause. 11. Kelsey Grammer. Kelsey Grammer is best known as one of television's most enduring stars, spending decades at the center of popular culture through his iconic role on Cheers and Frasier. His success appeared effortless: awards, longevity, and a respected place in Hollywood history. Yet behind that polished image was a life marked by extraordinary personal tragedy and long periods of inner turmoil. Grammer's early adulthood was shaped by repeated loss. His father was murdered, his sister was kidnapped and killed, and two half-brothers later died in a separate incident. These events left lasting emotional scars that fame could not mask. As his career flourished, Grammer struggled with addiction and self-destructive behavior, openly acknowledging that success only intensified unresolved pain rather than healing it. Faith became central to how he survived those losses. Grammer has spoken candidly about turning to Jesus, not as a public gesture, but as a means of understanding suffering that otherwise felt unbearable. Rather than abandoning belief during tragedy, he leaned into it, describing faith as the only framework that allowed him to process grief without bitterness consuming his life. What distinguishes Grammer's journey is his refusal to romanticize belief. He does not portray faith as instant relief or moral perfection. Instead, he presents it as a daily choice, one that coexists with doubt, regret, and ongoing personal work. In interviews, he has explained that without Christianity, resentment and anger might have defined him permanently. Grammer's faith did not remove him from Hollywood, nor did it shield him from criticism or personal struggles, but it reshaped how he measured success. Rather than chasing validation, he emphasized forgiveness, responsibility, and perspective. In choosing faith over bitterness and ego, Kelsey Grammer's story stands as one of endurance. It shows how belief can become less about image and more about survival when fame offers no answers to loss. 10. Justin Bieber. Justin Bieber's fame arrived at a speed few people could withstand. Discovered as a teenager, he became a global phenomenon almost overnight, with intense scrutiny following every move. Wealth, influence, and worldwide recognition came before emotional maturity, placing him under pressures rarely experienced so young. As his public image unraveled through controversy and instability, it became clear that success alone was not protecting him. Behind the scenes, Bieber has spoken about profound loneliness and confusion during his early fame. Despite sold-out tours and constant attention, he described feeling empty and directionless. The identity built around celebrity began to collapse, forcing him to confront who he was without the spotlight. It was during this period that his Christian faith became central rather than symbolic. Bieber has publicly credited Jesus with helping him reorient his life away from chaos and self-destruction. Rather than presenting belief as a sudden cure, he has described it as a process, one involving accountability, humility, and boundaries. Faith influenced how he approached relationships, mental health, and the decision to slow his career at critical moments. What makes Bieber's journey significant is the cost of his choice. In stepping back from constant visibility, he risked momentum in an industry that rewards relentless exposure. He accepted criticism, skepticism, and doubts about sincerity. Yet he consistently framed faith as more important than maintaining an image built on exhaustion. Bieber's story challenges the assumption that fame is always worth preserving at any cost. By choosing spiritual grounding over endless performance, he demonstrated a willingness to trade visibility for stability. In a culture that encourages constant reinvention for attention, Justin Bieber's decision to prioritize faith reflects a rare reversal, placing inner life above public demand. 9. Alice Cooper. Alice Cooper built his reputation on shock. As one of rock music's most provocative performers, he cultivated a stage persona defined by darkness, rebellion, and excess. The image was deliberately extreme, and for years it blurred into his private life. Fame amplified the lifestyle that surrounded his career, pushing him deeper into addiction and instability, while audiences saw only the spectacle. Behind the scenes, Cooper's dependence on alcohol became severe. He has openly described periods where drinking dominated his life to the point of physical and emotional collapse. Success did not protect him from self-destruction, it accelerated it. The contrast between his public persona and his inner reality grew unsustainable, leading him toward a moment of reckoning that fame could not postpone. That turning point came through faith. Raised in a Christian household, Cooper returned to belief during recovery, describing his encounter with Jesus as transformative rather than performative. Unlike many public conversions, his decision did not erase his stage career. Instead, it redefined boundaries between art and identity. He separated the theatrical character of Alice Cooper from the man behind it, grounding his life in prayer, accountability, and sobriety. What makes Cooper's story distinctive is his refusal to sanitize the past. He does not deny the darkness of his image or the harm of addiction. Instead, he frames faith as the reason he survived it. Christianity became the structure that allowed him to continue working without losing control of his life again. Cooper has stated that success without spiritual grounding nearly destroyed him. Choosing Jesus did not mean abandoning music, but it meant abandoning chaos. His journey challenges the assumption that belief requires withdrawal from creative expression. In a world that rewarded his excess, Alice Cooper chose restraint. His story illustrates how faith can coexist with fame, not by amplifying it, but by preventing it from consuming the person behind the spotlight. 8. Matthew McConaughey. Matthew McConaughey's career has been defined by reinvention. From early romantic comedies to award-winning dramatic roles, he has navigated Hollywood with unusual independence. While widely known for his charisma and unconventional public image, McConaughey has consistently grounded his life in Christian belief, even when that perspective ran counter to industry expectations. Unlike stories driven by collapse, McConaughey's faith developed through reflection rather than crisis. He has frequently spoken about gratitude, humility, and prayer as essential to maintaining balance amid success. At moments when his career stalled, or when roles no longer aligned with his values, he chose patience over desperation, a decision he attributes in part to spiritual grounding. McConaughey has described his relationship with Jesus as personal and practical rather than performative. Faith influenced how he approached career decisions, including turning down projects that offered money but lacked meaning. This restraint carried real risk in an industry where momentum is fragile. Instead of chasing constant visibility, he accepted uncertainty in favor of alignment with his beliefs. What sets McConaughey apart is how openly he credits God for direction without framing belief as limitation. He has spoken about prayer shaping discipline, perspective, and long-term thinking. Faith became a compass, helping him resist the pressure to conform to Hollywood's cycles of overexposure. His career resurgence later in life reinforced that choice. By prioritizing conviction over immediacy, McConaughey demonstrated that stepping back does not always mean falling behind. In choosing spiritual consistency over constant attention, Matthew McConaughey offers a quieter story of faith, one rooted not in crisis, but in intention. It suggests that choosing Jesus does not always require walking away from fame, but it does require redefining what success truly means. 7. Carrie Underwood. Carrie Underwood rose to fame through a highly public platform, winning a televised competition that instantly turned her into a household name. With chart-topping albums, major awards, and long-term success in country music, she became one of the genre's most consistent stars. From the outside, her career appeared perfectly aligned with public approval and commercial momentum. Yet Underwood has repeatedly emphasized that fame was never meant to define her identity. Raised in a small-town Christian household, Underwood carried her faith quietly into an industry where open belief is often softened or avoided. As her success grew, she faced pressure to broaden her image beyond the values that shaped her upbringing. Instead of distancing herself from faith to remain universally marketable, she chose to keep it central, even when doing so risked limiting crossover appeal. Underwood has spoken about relying on prayer and scripture during periods of exhaustion, injury, and intense public scrutiny. Touring schedules, physical demands, and the constant expectation to remain flawless created stress that success alone could not resolve. Faith became a stabilizing force, helping her prioritize humility, discipline, and gratitude in an environment that rewards excess. What distinguishes Underwood's story is her consistency. She did not pivot toward belief after a scandal or breakdown. She simply refused to let fame replace faith. Her music occasionally reflects spiritual themes, but she avoids turning belief into performance. Instead, she treats it as a personal foundation that informs how she handles success, family life, and long-term purpose. By choosing conviction over constant reinvention, Carrie Underwood demonstrates a quieter form of resistance within entertainment culture. Her journey suggests that choosing Jesus does not always require dramatic sacrifice. Sometimes it requires unwavering steadiness when compromise would be easier. 6. Brian Welch. Brian "Head" Welch achieved international fame as a founding member of the metal band Korn, a group synonymous with aggression, darkness, and emotional intensity. The band's success brought financial reward and global recognition, but it also immersed Welch in an environment defined by addiction and instability. As touring escalated, so did substance abuse, eventually eroding his sense of control and personal identity. Welch has described reaching a point where success felt hollow and destructive. Despite having everything associated with rock stardom, he faced isolation, broken relationships, and a growing fear that his lifestyle would destroy his ability to be present as a father. That realization marked the beginning of a profound shift. His conversion to Christianity came during recovery, when he encountered faith not as ideology, but as structure. Welch has spoken about discovering Jesus as a source of accountability and transformation rather than escape. The impact was immediate and costly. He made the decision to leave Korn at the height of the band's popularity, sacrificing income and relevance in order to rebuild his life around sobriety and belief. This choice drew skepticism from fans and industry peers alike. Many questioned his sincerity, while others dismissed faith as a temporary phase. Welch accepted the loss of status as part of the cost of change. For him, choosing Jesus meant choosing long-term stability over short-term success. Years later, Welch returned to music with a different framework, one grounded in boundaries and responsibility. His story stands out because it involves a clear trade-off. Fame was not rebranded, but deliberately set aside. Brian Welch's journey illustrates a rare Hollywood-adjacent decision, walking away at the peak, not because success failed, but because faith demanded a different measure of life. 5. Anthony Hopkins. Anthony Hopkins is widely regarded as one of the greatest actors of his generation, celebrated for his discipline, intellect, and unmatched screen presence. With decades of acclaimed performances and international recognition, his career represents artistic success at the highest level. Yet behind that achievement was a long personal struggle that fame could not correct, a battle with alcoholism that threatened both his career and his life. Hopkins has spoken candidly about reaching a breaking point where his addiction left him isolated and emotionally numb. Success did not shield him from despair. Instead, it amplified his sense of emptiness. At his lowest moment, he confronted the reality that talent and recognition offered no solution to self-destruction. That realization opened the door to faith. His turn toward Christianity was not sudden spectacle but quiet surrender. Hopkins has described encountering Jesus as an act of humility, acknowledging that willpower alone was insufficient. Faith became intertwined with recovery, providing structure, accountability, and a reason to rebuild life beyond performance. He has often credited belief with giving him clarity and gratitude after years of chaos. What distinguishes Hopkins' story is his refusal to romanticize redemption. He does not claim perfection or spiritual certainty. Instead, he frames faith as grounding, a daily orientation toward discipline and purpose rather than indulgence. His later career, marked by thoughtful role selection and creative longevity, reflects that internal shift. Hopkins' journey demonstrates that choosing Jesus does not always involve abandoning success, but it often requires confronting the limits of self-reliance. In an industry that celebrates control and mastery, his story stands as a reminder that surrender can be a form of strength. 4. Vanessa Williams. Vanessa Williams' rise to fame was both historic and turbulent. As a singer, actress, and public figure, she achieved groundbreaking success early in her career. However, that visibility came with intense scrutiny and controversy that nearly ended her professional future. At a moment when public opinion turned sharply against her, Williams faced humiliation and uncertainty on a national scale. Rather than retreat permanently from the spotlight, Williams turned inward. She has spoken about faith as a stabilizing force during periods when reputation and validation disappeared. Christianity provided perspective at a time when public approval was no longer available. Instead of defining herself by scandal or image, she began rebuilding identity around values rather than headlines. Williams' faith did not erase the consequences of her past, nor did it guarantee immediate restoration. Her career recovery took years of persistence and restraint. During that time, belief became less about visibility and more about resilience. She credits faith with helping her maintain dignity while navigating rejection and doubt. What makes her story significant is endurance. Williams eventually re-established herself through consistent work, refusing shortcuts or rebranding tactics that compromised her convictions. Faith shaped how she approached forgiveness both toward herself and the industry that once rejected her. By choosing spiritual grounding over bitterness, Vanessa Williams illustrates how belief can sustain identity when fame collapses. Her journey reflects a quieter but powerful choice, trusting faith to rebuild what applause could not protect. 3. Kirk Cameron. Kirk Cameron became a global teen idol at a remarkably young age, starring in one of the most popular television sitcoms of the 1980s. Fame arrived fast, public affection was intense, and Hollywood positioned him as a long-term star. Yet during the height of that success, Cameron experienced a growing sense of disconnection from the lifestyle surrounding him. The attention, wealth, and influence did not answer deeper questions about purpose or identity. While still at the center of mainstream entertainment, Cameron began exploring Christianity seriously. His faith in Jesus developed quietly at first, but it soon reshaped how he viewed fame, morality, and personal responsibility. Unlike many stars who compartmentalize belief, Cameron allowed faith to influence his professional decisions, a choice that carried immediate consequences. He became increasingly selective about roles, refusing projects that conflicted with his convictions. This approach placed him at odds with industry norms, where adaptability and image management often outweigh personal belief. Cameron has acknowledged that his career trajectory changed significantly as a result. Opportunities narrowed, and his mainstream presence diminished. Rather than viewing that shift as loss, Cameron described it as clarity. Faith gave him a framework for family life, integrity, and long-term purpose that fame could not offer. He redirected his energy toward faith-based projects, public speaking, and ministry-focused work, accepting reduced visibility in exchange for alignment with his beliefs. What makes Cameron's story distinctive is timing. He did not turn to faith after losing fame. He chose faith while fame was still available. That decision challenges the assumption that belief emerges only after failure. In his case, it redirected success rather than rescuing him from it. By choosing Jesus over Hollywood's expectations, Kirk Cameron demonstrated that conviction sometimes requires walking away from the version of success the world applauds most. 2. Patricia Heaton. Patricia Heaton built a long and successful television career, becoming widely respected for her comedic skill and consistency. Known for starring roles on major network series, she achieved financial stability and cultural recognition without relying on controversy or reinvention. Yet behind that steady success, Heaton navigated the same industry pressures that challenge many performers: pressure to conform, remain silent, and prioritize career over conscience. Heaton has spoken openly about her Catholic faith and its central role in her life. Rather than treating belief as a private detail, she acknowledged it as a guiding force in both personal and professional decisions. This openness placed her in an unusual position within Hollywood, where public expressions of Christian belief often provoke skepticism or dismissal. Her faith influenced how she approached fame, advocacy, and public discourse. Heaton accepted that certain opportunities or social approval might be lost by maintaining visible convictions. Rather than moderating her beliefs to preserve comfort, she chose consistency even when it meant criticism or misunderstanding. What sets Heaton apart is her refusal to frame faith as opposition. She does not present Christianity as a rejection of others, but as a personal responsibility to act with integrity, compassion, and restraint. In interviews, she has emphasized humility and accountability over judgment. By choosing clarity over caution, Patricia Heaton demonstrates that faith does not always demand withdrawal from success, but it often demands courage within it. Her journey reflects a deliberate choice to anchor identity in belief rather than applause, even while remaining active in mainstream entertainment. 1. Kanye West. Few celebrity faith journeys have been as public, controversial, and misunderstood as Kanye West's. For years, he stood at the center of global pop culture, celebrated as a musical innovator, fashion disruptor, and cultural provocateur. With wealth, influence, and attention, at a scale few artists ever reach, West appeared to embody ultimate success. Yet beneath that dominance was a growing pattern of instability, emotional conflict, and inner collapse played out in real time before the world. West has spoken openly about mental health struggles, fractured relationships, and the pressure of constant performance. At various points, fame intensified rather than resolved his sense of disorientation. The persona that once fueled his creativity began to consume him. As public perception shifted from admiration to concern, it became clear that achievement alone was no longer sustaining him. His turn toward Christianity emerged during this period of unraveling. Rather than framing faith as image repair, West described it as surrender and acknowledgement that control, ego, and ambition had failed him. The launch of his gospel-focused music and public worship gatherings marked a dramatic departure from his previous artistic identity. In doing so, he risked ridicule, alienation from longtime fans, and skepticism about sincerity. What makes West's story distinct is not polish, but tension. His faith journey has been inconsistent, debated, and uncomfortable to watch. Yet that discomfort underscores its authenticity. He did not present belief as resolution, but as struggle, a reorientation toward Jesus in the midst of unresolved flaws. West openly stated that faith required him to confront pride, fame, and self-worship. Whether embraced or criticized, his decision disrupted expectations of what belief looks like in modern celebrity culture. In choosing Jesus at the height of cultural power, Kanye West challenged the industry's most sacred value, self. His story suggests that faith does not always arrive quietly or neatly, but it can still represent a genuine turning away from the illusion that fame alone can save anyone. Fame promises fulfillment, but these stories reveal a different truth. Success can amplify talent, influence, and visibility, yet it cannot guarantee peace, purpose, or direction. For these celebrities, faith was not a trend or a marketing choice. It was a response to something fame could not fix. Some paid a professional price, others faced skepticism or misunderstanding, but all of them reached the same conclusion. Belief offered something applause never could. Which story surprised you the most? And do you think choosing faith in Hollywood requires more courage than choosing fame? Share your thoughts below.